All right, guys, welcome to the 132nd episode of The Get Down. My name is Cream.
Gary W. here.
Special guest sitting to my left, the one, the only Dario Valli.
How you doing?
What's up, sir?
What's going on? It is a pleasure and honor. I've looked at my DJ career as some achievements in life, and this is definitely up there to getting on here, so I'm very happy to be aboard.
Dario, you're already booked the next 2 months. You don't have to suck up.
No. December's not booked yet.
We've been talking about having you on for a while, and I think this is a great opportunity because Gary and I have been trying to bring sort of another aspect to the pod, and we're going to talk Dario Valli and your career and things that work and things that you focused on as both a DJ but also as a financial planner. And I think that's something we really want to dig into today. To try to help people because we don't have 401ks and we don't have health care and we don't have a lot of the things that a normal person who works a 9 to 5 have. So it's hard to get this information, and I think we're going to try to shed some light on that a little bit today. But before we do that, right?
Oh, yeah. I was going to say, I think a lot of us too, some of us grow up and we don't have maybe our parents don't have the knowledge for like some kind of financial planning. So
there's money under the mattress. That's
right,
what it was.
Right. So like so hopefully this podcast could shed some light on that. But also I'm really interested in why Dario got into financial planning and all that good stuff. So I want to hear the backstory before we give some advice and some information. But
So where we want to start?
Before that, let's start with your DJ career, because I think that's most of our audience is mostly DJs, and they want to kind of know where you started, where you came from, and you've really started to escalate your career recently. So if you want to take us up to the top and
Yeah, I don't think we need to dig into the full story because we're gonna get into a lot of stuff today. So what I really want to talk about is more so how in recent months here, in the last year or so, I think you've really stepped your game up and you've gone from, local DJ, playing some bigger shows, a lot of open stuff, playing some bars, to now being like one of the headliners that's getting regular bookings at a lot of the main spots, residency in AC, residency down the shore, obviously playing up here in North Jersey and New York City. So what are some of the things that got you from that opener spot to the headliner spot?
I think the biggest transition is understanding your roots from the beginning and kind of what define you as a difference maker. I think a lot of people in this industry, they're getting caught up in who has the most views, the most clicks, the most trendy, and they're chasing that down, which is fine. But as a result, you're pulling away from what actually defines you and your uniqueness in terms of what you bring to the table. I mean, I'm not going to go, right from the beginning of like the dawn of time when I became a DJ, but I still remember like it was yesterday still, of when I was playing those rooms with, maybe 3 to 7 people on a good night. At one point I was not going to even be a DJ anymore because I didn't really see an avenue of growth. I didn't understand necessarily what it took in terms of, who I need to talk to. And then I met you guys, and then I guess I stayed around for a little bit longer. But I think that what elevated me was doubling down on kind of myself in terms of what I as a person bring to the table. So, and I don't necessarily want to say skill is one thing, brand is one thing. I think it's a culmination of what you bring to the table in terms of understanding also the bookers as well. You're understanding and getting more experience in terms of, okay, I understand this person's at this venue. I understand the booker. I understand everyone from the top down and what they're really looking for. And that's going to make your job as a DJ and now going into a headliner much more easier, because you're not just going in there saying, oh, I have to crush a set. What does that mean to actually crush a set? Are you going in there just to get a good reaction out of people? Are you actually making the venue money? Are you adding additional value as a headliner? And so I think that's kind of been the biggest thing is, really owning my brand, really pushing that and honing in on certain avenues, not a generalized lane as well. Because I think a lot of people too, they're getting caught up in, I need to do this, I need to do that, I need to do that, I need to do that. And yeah, you can be pretty good at everything, or you can be really fantastic at a few things. And I think understanding that is going to help you move forward.
When I think Dario Valli, I think two things, and it's two things that you highlighted. I think patience, because you had a hell of a lot of patience at the beginning. You ran with us for a while doing,
Yeah, man.
the not, I don't want to say the bottom of the barrel stuff, but essentially.
But I played on a barrel.
Right, exactly.
Literally.
And then
I was like, you did it. You put the pun in there on purpose. You set me up.
And then the other thing is being just unapologetically Dario Valli. Like, you are so you, and we can call that your brand, but like you're just yourself. And you don't turn it down for anybody, and I don't think you can turn it up anymore. But you don't change no matter where you're at, no matter what room you're in, and I think it's helped you become the artist and the DJ and the personality that you are. And that's such an important thing in going from these lower level gigs, mid-level gigs, to getting these headliner gigs, is having a presence, right? And it's something that you command in a room, no matter if it's you're walking into a meetup, walking into a dinner, or obviously headlining a headline set. So I think those two things are very important, and they're very Dario Valli.
Everyone likes you when you walk into places. Like, the staff likes you, and we talk about that all the time. But it matters because they're gonna, if they like your DJ set or they don't, but they like you as a person, so they're more open to hearing you play and like supporting you and coming to see you at other venues that they don't even work at because they just like you so much, and that happens with you, and that doesn't happen with everybody. So I think that's a big part of it, and that was something that I felt like I was really good at early on as well, was just like becoming friends with the people you work with and not looking at it like, oh, I have to make these people like me so that I get booked more. It's just like, no, we're actually friends and we hang out outside of here and like we work together too.
I think, I think to that's a really critical point right there, is not necessarily, I'm very fortunate and extremely grateful that people do like me for me, because what you see too many times is people who are trying to be liked for the sake of getting booked to that point. And I think it becomes more of a detriment as a result, because you're not coming off genuine who you are. Like, if you're an actual introvert as a DJ, that's okay. If you're an extrovert as a DJ, that's all right as well. It's just, for me, I've been since the beginning myself versus now. The only difference really is that I prefer taking a nap before going out to my gigs, and I maybe have a Tums once in a while, versus before a meal. That's like that's the real difference.
But it's in the room, larger than life figure. Like,
that's a great point.
Yeah, no. If you're trying to, if you look at this podcast, frankly, and you're like, oh, I need to be more like him, then you're already losing and you're not understanding the point. Look in the damn mirror and be more like you. And what's going to happen is you might not hit in the beginning, but at one point you are going to hit, because people are going to respect you for that. You're being true to yourself and you're being a genuine human being. I appreciate the people who always show me love, and that it's genuine love. I would hope, that's a whole nother conversation, but I'm very thankful to where it's not anything that has been put on or anything like that. So it's just, that's a big thing, is really just staying genuine to who the hell you are.
Yeah.
So I think we might have part two. We'll dig more into like, Dario Valli, the DJ and the artist. I know, you're producing a lot of music, and if you guys don't have music by Dario, go check out his originals and remixes and edits, because they're really dope. The Ellie Goulding remix to me is a highlight. I play a lot in my sets.
Appreciate it.
Your Celia Cruz stays in my sets.
I appreciate that. Yeah, both of them are different points for me, because it's not just one or the other for me, right? Because from there, like I can go disco, freestyle, I'll play Jersey Club. It's just at the time of what I'm feeling and what I want to produce, I'm kind of, in the beginning of production, I made not the mistake, but and I don't even want to say it's falling into the trap, but more so, you're after things that you think will hit, and rather now I don't feel necessarily a pressure to make things that people are going to necessarily like. I like making things that I genuinely like making. And if people happen to like it, that's fantastic.
Yeah, that's the only way to make true fans. You know, if you're just chasing that sound, and we talked about it with Ferrari, you know, the 2 times that he was on here, and we talk about it with Ferrari when we do sessions with him.
He's a saint for putting up with me. Shout out to Ferrari.
But yeah, like just like finding yourself working rooms and meeting people, you got to find yourself with your music as well, and that all goes into, you know, the Dario Valli brand or the Cream brand or the Gary W brand, and that's the package, right? That's why people book you.
Yeah. I mean, now it's come to. I mean, I remember, frankly, and I'm not saying names or talking badly about anyone. I don't want that to be misconstrued. But in the beginning, I was trying to get in these bigger rooms, and it was like, oh, you know, you're a great person, you're a great DJ. Just wish you could bring more people. And I'm sure every DJ has heard something along in that sense. And I don't think that should at first I was very discouraged by that statement, but now later on, like probably fast forward 4 years, I'm very encouraged by that statement, because it's not like a laundry list of things you need to do. Essentially, what I take from that now is really hone in and develop your brand. Really focus on what market you're shooting for. Don't just shoot for everything like a shotgun here. Focus on that one target that you're after here.
Yeah, it's hard to do. It's like one of those things you kind of have to learn and figure out where you fit and where you want to go and what your goals are. And until you do that, I think it's okay to be a little bit more of a generalist. But once you figure it out, then you got to be kind of laser focused.
Oh, yeah. No, and there's time for that too. I don't even think that there's a set time, but when you figure it out, I'm saying, you know, freaking go for that, and, you know, don't stop, you know, when you actually know that to your true self. But, you know,
All right, so I think something that's interesting about you is a lot of the DJs that we work with or talk to, their goals always to be like, I want to get to a point where I can quit my 9-to-5 job and be a full-time DJ. I think you're on the opposite end of the spectrum, where you've made it a point where it's like, no, I'm going to keep my 9-to-5 because it allows me to be even more specific and picky on the places that you work and how much money you play for. And it's allowed you to kind of focus more on where you want to be. So was that something strategic? Did you think about that, or did it just kind of happen that way?
A little bit of everything. I want to shout out to my mother first, because she would kick me out the house. I remember I told her, I was like, Mom, I think I just want to DJ, and that's it. And she's like, well, I'm going to change the locks. You're going to figure it out. Very old school Italian, 5 foot tall woman. I love her with every single fiber of my body. She did everything for me. So shout out to Mom, love you. But at first, in the beginning, I was like, oh my God, you don't support my passion. How could you? The whole thing. And then, you know, I realized later on, like, kind of what she meant a little bit for that. And it kind of became, for me, for the career that I'm in now, that I can do both for now. Until one or the other blows up to the point where I just can't do the other, I intend on doing both. I mean, my ideal goal, if we're talking, you know, like ideal goal, I mean, yes, if we end up like a John Summit where we were an accountant and then, you know, just called it a day and then I could walk away, sure, fantastic. Sign me up. Life's great. But I'm kind of shooting. There's currently right now, I don't know if he's still currently, but he's the CEO of Goldman Sachs, and he's a DJ, and he runs Goldman Sachs. If I can end up like that, life would be pretty dang good.
Look at Elon making techno.
Yeah, exactly. And I think within this industry, and I'm not. Again, none of my statements, I don't want to be that as misconstrued as I'm calling out anyone or anything, but I'm just talking on the generalization of certain topics. I think a lot of times, you know, in this industry, it's like, oh, you know, you have to DJ, it has to be just that. And I get that. And I love and respect the passion for it. You know, people bleed for this, they die for this, and I get it. And I, in a sense, do as well. But, you know, you have to look at yourself at one point and be like, am I hurting myself, or am I actually helping myself by doing this? And I mean, I'm not going to say specific names, but I mean, more names than you think have some type of another hustle during the week than just DJing. Now, if you're a private event DJ, that's a whole different conversation, because you're making good money. I mean, you just have to sacrifice your weekends for 52 weekends, but you will make money in the private event game. But just slinging clubs, unless you are at the upper tier, you are not going to be making significant money. And I think that is it sounds bold, but like if you're a starting DJ and you're saying, you know what, I want to just DJ, I respect it, but understand there are going to be some hardships, and know that, are you setting yourself up for the future if you don't actually have a plan with this?
Well, I think this is a good lead in, right? So if someone out there is listening and saying, hey, like I'm considering quitting my job, what are some things that he or she should be thinking about from a financial perspective and from all right, can I afford to do this perspective? What are some things that they should think about?
So right out the gate, and just an idea, I am a financial planner. I've been doing this. This is not financial advice. No,
and,
none of this.
That whole spiel.
Yeah. I essentially, that's what I was getting into. There are no specific recommendations, but there are some generalizations, if you will.
Let's talk.
Anecdotes.
Let's think along the lines of like, how much money should we have in savings, and how much money should we put aside for insurance and things like that?
In the beginning, it was always your typical 6 months. You want to do about 6 months of savings. And I mean actual savings. We're talking, let's say you got blackballed in nightlife. You cannot get a gig for the life of you. You can't even get a karaoke gig on a Tuesday, for $50, something like that. And that's just, I'm being honest. I plan for the worst. That's my job. I plan for the worst. We also prepare for the best. But there are no guarantees in my industry, and that's a whole nother conversation. But, you want to really be understanding your numbers. You got to understand your expense numbers. You have to understand your income numbers. Basic budgeting on an Excel sheet, something on a piece of paper. You got to have a grasp of what the heck you're bringing in every month versus what is coming out, inflows and outflows. And from there, wait until you get a 6-month savings. I would say minimum. I would argue a year, because we just had a COVID, and people were just scraping by to get DJ gigs. I mean, you kidding me? That's a realistic. It's sobering for some, who are hearing this, and I don't want you to be discouraged. It just means you have to hustle maybe a little more, pick up an extra shift, build that cushion. But then I would say that would be a good opportunity then for you to maybe consider it at least. Like if you're drowning in credit card debt and student loans and you're barely scraping by with DJing and income, you probably shouldn't quit your day job in the meantime, just for the sake of doing it or the sake of a look. I don't think you're really setting yourself up for the future in the best way at that point.
Yeah, I was looking at like the average debt for Americans is like $60,000, which is like, that includes mortgages and whatnot. So you're taking that into consideration.
We would like
loans
to own a
and
home,
everything else.
Right,
exactly.
Like, what are we going to do? Are you doing this to just split with 5 other people a rent of a studio apartment? It's like, I mean, you can. I mean, don't get me wrong. You can do all of that. If you choose to live out your car and, do this and really dedicate to this, I salute you. Nothing. There's no shame in that. But is that the quality of life that you actually want? That's, I think, something you really need to look yourself in the mirror and say, can I stomach that? Not just for 6 months. Can I stomach that for a year, 2 years? So these are conversations to be had with yourself, I think.
Yeah. When I was making my move, and I knew that I was going to leave teaching, and I was, obviously teaching and DJing and doing the Get Down thing and coaching all at the same time. I knew I was going to lose a lot of that stuff. I don't know how you did that. So then it was like, all right, well, if I move to Florida, my cost of living goes down considerably, right? So then you weigh those expenses and what you're going to save, and it's like, okay, well, I can rationalize just DJing and doing the Get Down thing, and I don't have to teach when I get to Florida. But then the pandemic hit, and then I had to pivot and do something, right? And then it was like, all right, well, I'm going to pick up a part-time job, which I talk about all the time on here, because there's no shame in having that.
No.
Especially one that has flexibility that will let you come in, every other weekend maybe, if you're DJing on the weekend or whatnot. You find what's good for you and what's good for your financial situation, and then you could plan and make moves accordingly. I think that, any advice that we give is going to be very general advice.
Yeah.
And you have to take that advice and apply it to your situation. And then you can kind of make decisions financially and for your life and for your DJ career accordingly.
No, I think that's really good advice. And I think it's different for every single person, right? Like, we have to be general because there's no one way to do any of this stuff.
No.
And so my next question would be, let's get into, we mentioned budgeting, right? And you said we have to have a budget. So let's talk a little bit about what is a budget, how to create one. You had mentioned Excel spreadsheet, something that I do that I think all of us DJs should have some sort of system for keeping track of what gigs we played, how much money are we supposed to get paid for those gigs, and have we gotten paid for those gigs? And I do it in an Excel spreadsheet, and it's great because at the end of the year, I could use it for my tax purposes as well.
Love that.
And that's my revenue sheet right there, right? It's the money coming in, the money that's still owed to me, so that when I start planning for my next month or a big purchase, I know that, there's $3,000 that I still haven't gotten paid for. So, I'll be able to pay for X, Y, Z type of thing. So how would you go about kind of setting up a budget? And, I talked about how you keep track of your income, but maybe talking about your expenses.
Yeah, I mean, it really depends on how high level you want to go with it, right? I mean, because you can simply start out with just the rent, the car, the phone, the internet, something basic, the Apple Music, then the Spotify, now the Netflix, now
right, like keeping track of your
pools.
fixed budgets first,
Yeah.
like what's coming out of your account every single month, and kind of coming up with a number, right? Go look at your bank statements. Go take a look. What's coming out every single month, and if it's the same amount of money, then you can account for that every single month.
Oh, absolutely. And we're not even talking about travel. We're not talking about spending money on clothing. This is like, now I would say rent and food number one. I mean, because if you're starving and you have nowhere to live, that's a brutal life to kind of go about. Now it's like, okay, phone. We need that so we can talk to our bookers and, post on Instagram or TikTok or whatever the heck, what you're doing. Then from there, your DJ pools. Then, your SoundCloud monthly or, and all those little microtransactions you don't even realize add up. Before you know it, you have like 6 of them or 7 of them. It's like, oh, dang, I have like $110 or something like that that's coming out of my account that I had no clue.
Right.
It's like, well, simply just by doing this exercise of budgeting out your outflows, because you know what you're getting in. I'd hope most people know what you're bringing in. But your outflows, the difference maker there is going to be your difference maker on what you accumulate and then how you push it forward. And then that's another point, is just what you're using that surplus or deficit for.
Before you get into that surplus and deficit and maybe like some of the options, I want to talk about why it's so important to keep track of those monthly transactions, whether it be the record pools or your phone or, let's say, is it dry cleaning for gigs things that things that you're wearing to your gig. That's all. These are all transactions that you can write off at the end of the year. And if you don't have a number on that, you're leaving tax money on the table.
Exactly.
So you really should have a separate spreadsheet. One tab should be your revenue and what's owed to you, and then the next tab should be your expenses. And you could break it down monthly, and maybe one month is different from the next, but you should know, almost to the dollar how much you're spending on expenses. What is gig related? What is work related? Equipment's huge. New computer's huge. These are big expenses that need to be accounted for. That if you're not accounting for it, that you're going to overpay in taxes for. I know it. There's from state to state, it's different. I believe, right? From state to state, it's a little different. So
Florida, I'm shocked you guys even get a tax. It's
I don't work here, no idea.
Yeah, exactly. It's all sunshine, rainbows, and alligators over there. It's ridiculous. And then New Jersey, you take a breath of fresh air. It's like, all right, that's gonna be like 75 cents. Yeah, it's wild. But
let me jump in for 1 second. I want to kind of give you guys an idea of how I track my expenses, and you could do this a couple ways. You could do it like Gary said, monthly, or you could do it at the end of the year. It's just going to suck because you're going to spend a whole day doing it. But what I would do is if you want to use a spreadsheet, that's perfectly fine. Like Gary said, create those fixed costs then create the business expenses, then create the personal expenses. And you really have a full idea of where your money's going for each month. And all you have to do is sign into your credit card or your bank statements and just look at whatever money you spent and each line, and you go through each line and you assign it to something and you put it in the spreadsheet, right? You could do it that way, or you can sign up for something like QuickBooks for Small Business, where they'll do a lot of that stuff, and you could link all of your accounts. And every time you spend some money, you'll get an alert on your phone, and it'll say, "Hey, Cream, you just spent $25 on XYZ. Was this a personal expense? Was this a business expense? Oh, it looks like this was gas, so we're going to allocate it as gas money."
Yeah.
So QuickBooks is awesome. I think it's like $20 a month. If you don't want to do the spreadsheet thing, the QuickBooks route is a relatively inexpensive way for some help in tracking expenses.
This is not a sponsored ad, by the way.
I'm just telling you guys the stuff that I use.
Oh, yeah,
you know,
no,
like,
I'm just messing around. I want QuickBooks to pick up on the algorithm and say, hey, we really appreciate the support. Yeah, there we go. Generous donor.
But like knowing the money that's coming in compared to the money that's going out, you can then understand, am I spending too much money? Do I need to cut my expenses?
Yeah.
Am I living above my head? Am I paying too much for rent? Is my BMW necessary, right? Like
Exactly. Is that 7th pair of Yeezys really worth it for you? Oh, actually, no, we don't do Yeezys anymore, right? So it'd be Jordans. We're back to Jordans. Yes. Yes. The Travis Scotts, right?
You guys
As I
all
wear
know.
my 7th pair of Vans.
You guys all know better than me.
Yeah, exactly. No, now the kids like Crocs. That's what the thing is. Heard they're comfortable. I've done it. But yeah, I mean, and to that, if you can't even get the budgeting down, then frankly the rest of this conversation is not going to be of use to you, because if you can't hone in on your inflows and outflows, I mean, now talking about any type of investment strategy or any type of retirement planning, legacy planning, what have you, you're not going to be prepared, because it just kind of whets the palate, so to speak, in terms of actually getting you prepared to have these conversations about your numbers.
No, I totally agree. And, a lot of us just can like live by the seat of our pants and like, oh, there's money in my account, so it doesn't really matter and it's okay. But until you go through this exercise and really understand your numbers, you have no idea. And you don't know if you could afford anything, because you don't know what your numbers are. So like Dario said, first and foremost, you have to know the inflows and the outflows, know your numbers first. And then you could start thinking about if you can afford certain things, and you could start thinking about savings and investments or paying off debt. And Dario, I'll let you kind of take it from there. For someone that might have an influx of money, they're spending less than they're making. They're making $1,000 or $2,000 above their expenses every month.
Even a couple hundred.
Yeah. How are you thinking about allocating that money to debt, to savings, to investments?
Yeah, I think, depending on the debt, for example, I mean, I'm going to try and keep this as sexy of a conversation as we can. So, tune in. No, kidding. But realistically, you got to look right off the bat of the interest rate on your debt, right? And what I mean by that is, every month of what they're charging on top of your principal. So in terms of credit cards are typically the number one. Worst. We want to knock credit cards out. Credit cards can be one of the best tools for you, but they could also be one of your biggest downfalls. So you have to understand to be responsible. Set the damn card on auto pay. That's simple. Put it on auto pay. Treat your credit card like your debit card. If you can't afford it through your debit card, then guess what? You can't afford it in general. All right?
I'd also like to piggyback on that.
Yeah.
If you can get to a point where your credit card, like you're out of debt, like pay your credit card in full every month.
Pay it in full. I
don't carry any of that.
Oh, please. I put extra in my credit card, and I treat it as a balance at that point. Because now your credit, I mean, this is like higher level stuff here. But essentially, like if you put a little extra more, if they allow you to, now what you're doing is you're bringing your credit utilization down further. And so that's what, that's going to be a positive impact on your credit score. And by the way, I'm not a credit, that's not part of my, profession or anything of that sort. I'm just very passionate about utilizing credit positively for you. So that's just, and I think if you're running a business or something, whether you LLC or DJing, I mean, just having some basic credit is going to really push you ahead in terms of at least setting yourself up rather than doing debit transactions. First off, the safety. I mean, if you're going through a credit card, God forbid you have fraud or something like that, a couple $100, your credit card can get maxed out. Yeah, but at least they're not liquidating your bank account. I mean, and that's why there's a whole fraud department. I mean, if they see that, you're getting swipes off a Sheen for like $7,000 or something. I mean, obviously that's a ridiculous statement, but you never know. But as a result, it goes into an actual, review of that. None of your money is lost at that point. Your credit card's maxed out. Yeah. But you're saving yourself right then and there.
Right.
Right.
So I think right off the bat, the credit cards is a huge one because that's a common one. And I guess for my, the next forms of debt, really are the other common ones be car payments and mortgage. Now, what I'm going to say here, you need to understand, so I'm going to say it a little slowly. Depending on what your interest rate is on these loans dictates how important you pay it off.
Like the rank of importance.
Yes. If you have a mortgage from anywhere from 3% and lower, ride that the hell out. Because the difference that you're using to paying into that low interest mortgage, you can put that towards something else, either paying off a credit card with a higher interest rate or potentially investing and putting that money to work for you. Because, that at that point, that's not what they call necessarily the worst type of debt, but that interest rate, man, that's why you should not be in a rush to pay that off at all.
Right. And to put in perspective, the credit card interest rates can be up in the
20s.
Yeah,
easily.
up in the 20%. So think about
easily.
that. You want to be paying off that credit card debt first and foremost, and that's the worst debt you could carry because those interest rates are going to cause you to spend or pay back way more money than the original cost of whatever item, that you use the credit card to purchase,
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, debt in general, I mean, this is all debt that we should pay off. I'm not saying that we're not going to pay it off, but in terms of your pecking order of what we're putting our money into is really dictated on the interest rates. Because, let's say, I mean, we have a lot of young DJs too. Let's say you're going to college, you're finishing out college, your parents are like, all right, you need to at least go to college, get a 4-year degree. Even though you're not going to, go forward, let's say you decide that. Your college loans alone are anywhere from about 6 to 9%. You want to talk about a real bubble that we have on our hands. The student debt bubble is a huge one. That is, frankly, there's no sign of resolution anytime soon. I would not necessarily try to wait and for the government to come in and help you out because, I mean, they can't figure out a dang thing. I mean, they delayed a shutdown, as of this podcast for 45 days. They can't agree to anything. So why would you trust your government to come in and save you when you can just take the hold of that debt and say, okay, let's pay this off a little more quickly? Because still 9 to 7%, that's still a relatively high interest rate that you don't want to really, linger. So I think that's another one as well. And then, once you kind of get your pecking order of your debts too, because, I mean, look, a lot of people are in debt, and that's fine. There's no shame in that. That's why we have credit, and, you could use credit to your benefit as well, but that's a whole nother conversation that I don't think is on, the script for this podcast. But, I think understanding the interest rates alone on that debt is going to be huge for you.
One thing I want to jump in on is just we're talking about credit and just something that I would also throw out there. If you're LLC'd and you have a business, right? You have a business account, you should have a business credit card. And every single time that you use or spend money while you're DJ, whoever, you're traveling, you're getting on the train to go to a gig, you're paying for a taxi, you need to use that single credit card. So then at the end of the month, when you're doing expenses, you can say, oh, let me go look at my business credit card. And all of your business expenses are in one place.
Right there. And it helps with your budgeting right there.
Helps with your budgeting. The other thing is, there are a lot of rewards cards out there. So if you're traveling a lot, maybe you want a travel card. If you go out to eat a lot, you want to find a card that, pays cash back for groceries or restaurants. Or if you're Ubering a lot and you're using taxis a lot and you don't have a car and you live in the city, get one of those Uber cashback cards. So really do your homework and think about where you spend your money and what card can help you the most.
Oh, easily by far. And I mean, I have about 4 credit cards myself, and I think that that's a low number for what I'm trying to do. And I'm not condoning or recommending that people get credit cards right out the gate. But I'm just saying, I mean, I have a travel card. I have, to your point, a restaurant and grocery card. I have a cash back card. I have, my last card is a topic that too. The last card I kind of just keep around, but it's my first credit card. And why I think that's the most important is because that dictates your credit history.
Yeah.
And if you close out, that's another thing too. Oh man, we're heating up right here. Okay, so crank up the volume, folks. But I got my first credit card. My mother, had me go in. Again, shout out to Mama Valley. We love you.
I think this is the first episode we got shouts to Mom on the podcast. I love that.
It only took 132 episodes. God
and
bless.
no one talks about their mother. What a sin.
Not enough Italians on this show.
No. This is what happens. I was gonna come with a full tray, but I was like, no, we're walking around too much today. We can't be bloated. Having us here, like have the meat sweats there in the pot. It'd be brutal. But yeah, I keep my first credit card, and I argue that that's the most important thing because I've had that credit card since I was about 16, and just from you keeping that credit card will. I mean, whether or not what you choose to use it, just keep it enforced because that's going to help your credit history in the long run, which overall really helps your credit score. And, when you're potentially about to do a car payment, drop a down payment on a car, a home, what have you, stuff like that is going to really add up. And if you're just in the game too, and you're like, oh man, like I have bad credit, there's options too, such as like a secured card. You can do it like that. If you have family that trust you and like you have an agreement, like let's say your parents, like if you're a young DJ watching this, ask them to throw you on as an authorized user, not on an Amex card, because an Amex card is a charge card. Okay, understand the difference. But have you talk to your parents, say, throw me on for an authorized user because you get their credit history as a result of that. And that is going to help you so much down further the line. Then you could open up maybe 1 or 2 cards, and then you could really build yourself out in terms of your credit. So, I mean, if you use it properly, man, I mean, credit can be, a really one heck of a force.
Right. When you have a high credit score,
Yeah.
You're going to be able to be authorized for higher end purchases, maybe more expensive purchases
For better rates.
Right. And that's the big thing is when you are authorized for these purchases, you're getting the better interest rate, which we talked about a little earlier. And guys, like I know this is overwhelming. There's a lot.
Just means you have to hear it twice.
And literally, like we could have 3 episodes in a row talking about personal finance because there is so much that goes into it, and it's confusing and it's overwhelming, and I totally understand. But it's super important that you have at least a base understanding of this stuff.
Yeah.
Go listen to a podcast. If you like to read a very basic personal finance book. I have one that I would love to recommend. It's I Will Teach You to Be Rich by Ramit Sethi. You can listen to the audiobook.
Yeah.
It's very it's easy to understand. It is very approachable, and it honestly helped me years back when I was trying to become more educated on my personal finance and just improve my situation. It was really, really helpful.
I want to be clear on something here too, because if you're listening to this and you're extremely behind the 8 ball financially, there's no shame in it, right?
No. And
50,
I think,
like 55 to 63% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck, right?
Yeah.
Those people probably haven't established a great plan. We're here, we're just trying to shed light on maybe some small baby steps to establish a plan in order to not live paycheck to paycheck.
Oh, yeah, no, and I don't want anyone who's listening to this. So I currently work with TD Bank right now, and it's been a delight. When I tell you I have seen people from very, knowledgeable to very not knowledgeable, I have seen, and again, nothing specific, I have seen hundreds of thousands sitting in checkings for no reason for months. No idea what to do. So some people, they make money. They don't even know what to do with the money. and you're probably listening to this saying, "Oh man, that's crazy," you would be shocked. And so, whatever knowledge you're coming into listening to this, please don't be discouraged, but at least have the courage to admit, "Hey, I could probably learn a little bit more here," and take the initiative for yourself and to set you and potentially your future family and generations to come.
No, I think that's awesome advice. I love it.
Yeah.
All right, so let's pivot, right? We talked about debt and we talked about credit cards. Let's say that some of us are lucky enough that we were able to pay off our student loans, or we pay off at least our credit card debt, and we're making more money than we're spending, and there's a little bit of a surplus every month. How should we think about that extra money as far as savings or investing or something else?
So I think understanding what your goals are and your time horizons from this point are going to be big, because now sky's kind of the limit. I mean, sky's always the limit, regardless of which way you start. I personally feel I'm an optimist at heart, but you're in a very good boat now where you have no debt and you're bringing in surplus income. You're better than most people in the United States. And just when you actually go in terms of actual debts versus assets, like a lot of people are minus because yes, they're earning, but they don't have any assets and they have a ample amount of debt. So you are actually in a good spot, believe it or not. What to do with that really dictates on, again, your time horizon, your goals. Because if we're looking to buy a home in 5 years, we're not looking to lock this money up for a very long time, because that's not going to really benefit you, because you're going to incur certain surrender charges, any punitive fees, anything like that, potentially capital gains when you don't need to do that. So I think there are avenues for that versus someone who has like a 15 to 20-year time horizon. At that point, the longer the time horizon you have, I'd say, is typically, works out in your favor, because you can take what they call volatility, or the ups and downs of certain, whether it be interest rates, whether it be the overall market, what have you. You can take those ups and downs as long as you're staying consistent, just doing dollar cost averaging. You're going to be in a really good position. So I think that's really the first understanding of that.
I want to simplify what you said a little bit.
Okay.
So I know you mentioned a
like
few things that I think people might not even really know what that means.
Yeah.
So I guess explain, if we're going to start talking about investing money, explain what dollar cost averaging is.
Yeah. So what I said right there, dollar cost averaging, is essentially you're not timing the market, you're putting your time in the market. Not timing the market, time in the market. It's like
What is that, one of your sales lines to your prospective customers, or what?
Oh yeah, that's a great one. That's a good one. That's
no.
a gem.
What he really means though too is you're never gonna. No one can guess what's going to happen with the stock market or with economic.
If we were,
systems.
we'd be Warren Buffett or something like that. And guess what? We're not. And that's okay. You don't have to be. But if this is long-term money, then why are you going to try and wait to guess on when it's going to be a right time? The right time is to get in immediately and just stay consistent. Stay the plan, whether it's $50, $20, $100, $1,000, whatever number that you can put in for your long-term goals, contribute, man. Just stay at it. Put an automatic deposit in it. Don't even pay attention, and then it'll just get allocated,
Right, and then this is like the next tab on that spreadsheet, right? It's the investment tab, and you know that you have this much excess money, and you're going to allocate, let's say, 10% of that excess money.
10%.
And now all right, every month, 10% of my $2,000 surplus is going to go towards my investments, and you set it and you forget it. It just comes out every single month, and you don't even need to look. You don't need to follow the market. You don't need to worry about if the market's skyrocketing or if it's crashing. You just keep putting in 10%.
Look, we're not chasing meme stocks. We're not chasing Dogecoin, GameStop stock. By the time, who knows what the next craze is going to be. But realistically, that's frankly noise. And if you're trying to get rich quick, you're going to find that you're typically going to get yourself in a worse position by doing that.
Right.
You're setting yourself up for a better life That doesn't happen overnight, regardless of what you're doing, regardless of whether or not you're hammering out tracks or gigging or investing. I think, a lot of people, they're trying to get rich quick. Man, 10 years will go by so damn quick. If you do it right, you're going to thank yourself a whole heck of a lot later.
Yeah, that's a great point. You could
Agreed.
save or invest a lot of money over a period of time when you just kind of are putting in a little bit every month,
On average, the S&P 500 yields anywhere from 8 to 10%. I mean, look, like, I don't know about you, but I would prefer that, and just know that over 20 years, getting an average of that, I'm pretty
Right, your money's
happy
going to
with
grow.
that. Yeah, exactly. Your money is going to go up at one point. I mean, if you look at statistically any of the worst times in the economy, the Great Depression, the Great Recession, the tech bubble, even recently with COVID, everyone thought the world was going in during COVID, and it's like, oh, geez, like, and a lot of times with my career with financial planning, I find I'm emotionally coaching people, because I'm trying to walk you off the edge there, because people are like, oh, I just want to sell everything because my portfolio went down 20%. Why the hell would you want to sell everything when it's 20% down?
Discount season, I'm buying. I'm kidding.
I mean, well,
This is not financial advice.
This is not financial advice, but I'm not, I'm not disagreeing nor agreeing with that. But, but you see what I mean there? In terms of that, you have that basic financial literacy, so some nuances of, okay, maybe, is it time to put in a little more, but, man, just freaking stay the course. Stay the course and just put in a little bit.
Darius, it's something you said. You said 10 years goes by so fast. I remember in 2007 when I opened my 403B for my teaching career.
Yep.
And kind of set it and forget it. Like, I was saving for a house in that time, so investing into the retirement fund really wasn't a thing. So I was so aggressively saving for a house, and all of a sudden I'm leaving teaching 13 years later, and I have this really nice start to my retirement fund. And then it was like, all right, well, now what am I going to do with it after? But like you said, as long as you start it, it has nowhere to go but up, right?
From 0 to 1 is 100%. Never forget that. 0 to 1 is 100%. So you got to start somewhere.
Right.
Yeah.
So
that's a great, Gary. It's a great point, only because when we are working 9 to 5s, you have an investment plan.
Yeah.
Your company is putting money aside for you for your retirement. Hey, DJ Cream, I don't have that. I have to do that, or I have to pay someone to do that for me.
Yep.
Or I'm not going to be able to retire, or I'm going to just have to go do something else, right? Because, and then I'm going to be way behind other people who have been doing that over the course of time. So even if it's $50 a month, I think it's so important to set some sort of an investment plan up. And, there's a lot of ways to do it. There's a lot of different apps. I don't think that's something we're going to get into right now. I think you guys can go do your homework on...
Or call me.
Right, or talk to Dario, or talk to someone that knows more than you do about ways to set up an automatic investment plan, and what are some safe ways to do that, or introductory ways to do that.
Yeah, and I think going off of that too, I mean, as I was half joking, half serious, feel free to give me a call or email me or what have you, reach out. But more so than that, even if you don't go with me, some basic things you need to look into is the person you're talking to. Are they what they call a fiduciary? A fiduciary, someone who is legally obligated to act in the best interest of your client at all times. You got to make sure they're that. If they're not that, say kindly, thank you very much, get up out the chair and walk out. And that's basic stuff too, because I find too, people do look for help, and unfortunately there, are some avenues where people are not necessarily, I guess, really helped in the most, genuine way possible, if you will. But I think even more so, I think you bring up a great point too with the 9 to 5. Even if it's not a 9 to 5, man, get something in contracting, construction, do something, flip burgers. And I'm actually not kidding when I say that. Do anything to bring you some type of sort of extra income to where you're at a happy level in your life. I think that's too an important thing. Of understanding, what income level is going to make you happy and what needs to be supplemented with that.
Yeah. It's a hard
can-
time right now.
Oh yeah.
Everything is super expensive. Rental properties, buying a home, groceries, cost of living is insane.
Let alone you need a new DJ laptop. Come on now. It's like I think last I was looking, what it was like you got to spend at least $3 or $4 grand. It's like it's insane, and then that's not even including if you need a controller to looking to get into this, and it's like, okay, it adds up.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah,
So go ahead, Gary.
No, I was just saying. I was like speaking to somebody the other day about like new CDJs and a DJM. Is like what kind of my second or third set of DJ equipment was like. You're looking at like $10,000. Like that's not even really fathomable for anybody.
Yeah, and to say that for a beginning DJ, go do this. It's like, how are you supposed to do that? What? Then you put yourself in more credit card debt, and then now you're in the beginning of the episode. It's like
right.
It's like, dang, I didn't listen to the third step there.
I'm Mr. Shit on controllers, but like, I don't think I could buy two 3000s and a new 900. Like, I couldn't spend that much money on something that like would sit. I don't even have a place to put it in my apartment, but it would sit in my studio, quote unquote,
which is very aesthetic.
And I'd use it how many times, like.
Yeah.
And that's too. I think adding to that, is the juice worth the squeeze? I love that saying. That was a great movie too. Was I think The Girl Next Door, something like that. Great movie. Was the juice worth the squeeze? On your purchases too with that, are you investing properly in yourself with that? Like, yeah, sure, I'm going to do more. I'm going to put in more hours of mixing and playing. You don't need a CDJ setup to do that. I'm sorry.
Right.
And all the purists out there, I respect it. I love it. That's great. You don't need it. Like,
right.
Realistically, you could try to load up a flash drive after doing a couple of YouTube tutorials, setting up the record box, bring in the Guitar Center or what have you, seeing if it works, then go to your gig and, hope for the best and try to, but like, or even rent. You can rent a CDJ setup for like a week or something like that, and it's just, are you properly putting the funds and actually investing toward the goals of your brand as a DJ too? Are you using this money properly for that? Or are you just using it on junk?
Could be both.
A little bit of both. A little bit of both. Do I have too many oversized T-shirts at this point? Absolutely. We're working on a third drawer.
Listen, write it off. Write it off.
Write it off. Oh, God.
All right. So the last aspect of this I want to talk about is savings, because I know we haven't really got into that yet. Let's talk a little bit about savings. Is there a percentage of savings that you would kind of put out there as a generic number?
6 months minimum of your.
Well, no, I'm saying on like a month-to-month basis.
Oh, on a month-to-month.
If you're working on, in the green and you're making money, how much money would you put aside for savings on a month-to-month?
That's tough because I'm a different boat, because I already have my savings. I already have my nut because.
But I'm saying if you're a.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying is it depends on your goals and time horizon. It goes right back to those 2 points, because why would you put in your savings bucket if that savings bucket is just for your 6 months expenses? Your 6 months expenses is already done. So why would you fill that bucket that's already full? So that's what I'm saying. Are you saving now toward a home? Are you saving toward a car? Until you hit those goals, then yeah, hit the savings. But then after that, though, frankly, I think you should just be looking in terms of your overall investments and your assets in terms of, okay, well, my 6 months expenses is covered. Great. We love that for ourselves. Am I saving toward a car? No, I'm not saving toward that for a little bit. Okay, I could put maybe a little X percentage and plan that out backwards. You start with a price, let's say the average price, you're shooting for a $30,000 car. You divide that up by, let's say, 5 years. Okay, this is how much I need to put in toward that. And then you go from there and you contribute to that. But let's say that bucket isn't even a factor. Then we look into the home and so on and so forth. But if those buckets are accounted for, then you got to look at yourself and say, okay, well, am I just going to put in the checkings or more savings, or are we going to put this to work? Because most likely the audience listening to this is anywhere from 18 to 38, maybe 48, pushing it. You got another 15 years or so. You got to get a little bit of interest on here. You got to get some growth accumulated. You can't just all sit in the savings now and the checkings. So are you really making your money work for you?
So, all right. So for people that maybe don't have savings yet, you want them to try and shoot for that 6 months expenses in savings. And then once you hit that, then you start thinking about investing, or are you investing as you're getting to that 6 months of savings point as well?
I would say 6 months savings, because it doesn't matter how your portfolio is doing if you're if you're on the street because you can't pay for your expenses.
Right. So make sure you have that 6 month expense saved, and then you can start putting money to work in one of the investment.
Yeah.
Right, because Dario, like you highlighted before, if shit hits the fan and you have money in certain investments and you go to take that out, you're going to be penalized for it, and you're going to lose.
Yeah, and let's say that portfolio is down. Well, what if that
Right.
portfolio is down? Let's say you hit a COVID where the stock market dropped anywhere from about 20%.
Right,
Now,
and those are the moments where people are going to reach for that money, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And so now let's say, I mean, you want to talk about the worst case scenario here. Let's say you have no DJ bookings, you're getting kicked out of your home because you didn't save up 6 months expenses. But okay, well then let me liquidate my portfolio that I've been building up. It's
a waste of all those years.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. You're working against that compound interest. So, I think just taking those baby steps now, though, now you're looking at it's like, oh, dang, okay, we have our 6 months expenses. Awesome. We have the secure stuff that we need. We're making sure that, that is nice. And yeah, probably there's some entrepreneurial people who are on here and they're like, no, you got to use that money toward the business. It's like, okay, I get that, but some people don't want to live on the street or out of their car or what have you. It's not feasible for a lot of people. So for the general public, I'd say, 6 months, man, just want to knock that out, and your debt, because that's going to be your baseline from what you can do from there, because why would we even talk investments or anything if that's not handled?
Right.
Yep.
One last thing I want to touch on,
Yeah.
taxes. We haven't really talked about it.
Okay.
Being entrepreneurs and individual businesses, again, we're not working for a company that is taking taxes out for us, right?
Yeah.
Just like we talked about the investments, no one's putting money in an investment account. We have to do it on our own. So I think it's really important that as we're making money, we're allocating some of that money to pay taxes at the end of the year, because depending on your accountant, it could be a whole lot of money, it could be a whole lot of money. And just for an example, Gary and I take 20% of our revenue from every single month and put it aside for taxes in a separate savings account.
And that's probably low.
Right.
And
Yeah.
that,
Yeah, and I think that's a practice that, frankly, majority of the people don't do. I would say.
You know why we started? Because there was one year where I got hit with like a $10,000
Ooh.
tax thing that I had to just pull out of.
Yes, it was crazy. It was like 10 grand, 13,000. It was just a ton of money one year, and it was like,
Holy
well,
cow.
we should probably rethink.
You got to
this
start
whole
planning for that.
Yeah, it's like,
So
hear me out.
don't
Put some
learn
money on the
don't
side.
learn the way we had to learn, where
Yeah.
you got to come up with some money because
Yeah.
you owe 10 to 15K on taxes.
Yep.
Yeah, no, that's never good, because taxes, they come after you for that one. They definitely do.
Death
pay
and taxes.
Got it.
Death-
Death, taxes, and and old DJs complaining about things.
That's funny.
There's gonna be a couple of trigger guys like, oh man, they're the worst.
Is there anything else that we haven't covered? I mean, again, guys, this is something new for us. We're hoping to do something a little different for you and kind of give you some insight into something that Gary and I both needed help with, So
Yeah.
if we needed help with it, I'm sure you guys needed help with it too. So I hope this conversation has helped you. Even if your eyes glazed over a few times,
Yeah.
I think it's good if you took one thing away from this conversation. It's a positive in my outlook.
Well, I can give a gem as to why now this thought process, why it all comes together now. I can give you the crown jewel right here. I am able to leverage where I work now because I'm not stressing from lack of income. I have the power to say no now. Insanely much more, because I work during the week. Insanely much more. A lot of guys, they don't say no, and as a result, which is fine. Again, none of this is detrimental or bad, but I just want you to understand this. If you're a DJ or artist trying to work your way up, but as a result, you're taking on more gigs. Yes, I understand, because you're bringing on income, but as a result, you're diluting your brand. And now, because you're diluting your brand, it is less valuable. So now you have less leverage for when you're trying to go to bigger venues and propose yourself as that. And even furthermore, what I'm doing is I'm using a majority of my DJ income and I'm putting it back into the business because my bills are paid, everything is covered through my work during the week. Now you're seeing, my quality has dramatically increased because now I'm able to put in more capital into it. And I'm not talking about fake followers. All right. That's not, you can, that's no. But I'm talking, I'm able to pay videographers. I'm able to pay photographers. I'm able to take more music lessons. I'm able to pump out more quality with now more capital that I'm not stressing because like all these buckets that we just mentioned, I'm covered. I'm good. So when that all comes together a little bit, you're going to see that your life is a little, I think, less stressful because you're not stressing, oh man, I'm worried from this one venue who hasn't paid me in 3 weeks that, $150, but they gave me 2 hookah tickets, or whatever, 2 drink tickets and a free hookah. Sorry, but that's the point we're trying to get at here. Is there's definitely more than one way to skin a cat. You don't have to go into my profession. You don't have to go into contracting. Just maybe pick up a side hustle, do Uber or something like that. Not a pyramid scheme. We would say avoid that, but like do something here to at least lessen the burden on yourself because you're gonna then make moves that are not as calculated or as actually diligent in terms of your plan. Like a lot of people look and we talk about how lighthearted and fun I am, and don't get me wrong, I am, and we love to have a good time. But man, when it comes to business, I am very different. I'm extremely serious. I put a lot of work behind the scenes to where I've gotten here. It's and that's what you have to treat this too. This is a damn business. And that's what's once you take it like that too, that's going to really set you apart from a lot of people who are just going out and getting drunk, for quote unquote networking, but you really didn't do anything. You just wasted a night and you didn't even, work toward making any content or doing anything. So I think a lot of hard conversations you have to have with yourself, frankly.
This conversation was great because it is a little departure from what we do talk about, leaving your day job and going all in on your brand and going all in on yourself. And then it highlights, you doing both, having a full-time job and being a high-end DJ. And then also saying that, hey, it doesn't have to be a full-time job. It can just be a part-time thing. Like I always talk about, like I have my part-time job that like I go work 1 or 2 days and it pays my phone bill or it pays my water bill or whatever it might be. It all adds up in the end, right? Because maybe then you have an extra $200 or $300 to invest in
easily
whatever, the stock market or your retirement or whatever
let's say
it
you
might
need
be.
a new laptop, because then what happens? You're not bringing in the proper capital, and let's say some drunk person spills a drink on your laptop, or your laptop is just too old. Now you can't even DJ. So now you can't DJ and you don't have an income. So it's stuff that, kind of adds up that a lot of people don't think about. And, you don't need to do one way or the other. I don't think that there's really a set path, but really understanding what's important to you and what you can make work.
Yep.
You can be successful on either path.
Yeah.
And, Gary knows for a really long time, I was the poster child for, hey, go all in. I want to work with people that are all in.
We've had that conversation. You and I have gotten on arguments about that, and now
I've actually really, really softened on my stance. And I look back at my DJ career and think, hey, if I had another source of income and I wasn't relying on DJing as much as possible, could I have grown faster? I'm happy with where I've gotten to as a DJ and with Get Down and everything, but I don't know. Maybe if I did have that income and I didn't have to take the $300 whatever gig, maybe I would have been taken more seriously, or I would have been considered a headliner earlier, or would have been offered some bigger gigs earlier, And looking back, I can now have that perspective. But in the time, it was just like, all right, this is what I want to do. I'm going to go all in. I'm going to work as hard as I could. And I made it to the end too, and I think I've had a pretty successful career. And
yes, you have.
You've had a successful career, and you did it a different way, and that's okay. Like I think that's what's great about this. We could all kind of take our own paths, but still get to a similar end.
Yeah. And to both points too, because Gary brought up how one thing is part-time. I want to be very clear here. If you do choose to have 2 hustles, you are working a lot. Like I get home, I close my work laptop. Guess what I'm doing? I'm opening my DJ laptop. I'm staying up on my music. I'm working on music. I'm making sure that I have my content schedule. I'm still working, just I'm not working in the club. And so, like, for example, like if I have like one gig for the weekend, A, I'm not sweating financially, but B, it's typically going to be a higher end venue because I've made it so. And the night that I have off, I really don't have off. I'm staying up just about as late, if not up more late, working on music, doing something that is working toward the DJing regardless. So I think too, just because if you do kind of choose to have the path of working during the week, kind of DJing on the weekends, quote unquote part time, use your actual off time in a way that's going to help leverage and build your brand. Because if you're just sitting around, this is not going to work for you at all.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's good advice for either path too. Like either DJ.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's those extra hours, that extra hour that you put in and just like, all right, I'm a little tired right now. Let me just push it a little bit in terms of getting what I got to get done, because that's just one less thing you have to do. And then before you know it, now you have more time to do another thing. And you're just building that discipline that's going to push you down the line, because to make it, man, you got to be disciplined too. That's another damn thing.
I like it. Anything else, Garrett? Anything else? Any other questions? Is there anything else we need to cover here?
No, I think we covered it all as far as the surface topics that we wanted to talk about. So
yeah, and Dario, is there anything else you want to touch on? Is there any other final words you want to, any more gems? I mean, you've been kicking some gems today. I must say, a lot of.
I like my little anecdotes. That's the way I can get around giving like actual financial, specific financial advice. For starters, just if anyone has any general questions, you could reach out to me on Instagram at Dario_Valli. If you have my number, give me a call, shoot me a text. I'm very open to having these conversations because I genuinely have a passion with helping people. Other than my music, I think helping people financially is one of the greatest things that I could do for someone, because you never know how someone is, and you could flip someone's life around. And I've seen it many times. But overall, I think just with a little bit of everything, regardless of what you're doing, do it with passion, be genuine to who the hell you are, man. Because if you're just either chasing the quote unquote, you're chasing the bag, you're trying to, have this idea of an image of who you think you are. Let me tell you, man, there are plenty of people who are way bigger than you, and there are plenty of people who are, I guess smaller as well. But if you carry yourself in terms of just who you are as an actual person, that's going to get you a whole lot farther than how well you can play, because I've seen a lot of guys who can play really well, and they are just not a good fit personality-wise, so to speak. Right. I won't go into more depth than that. But, and just simplify it, man. Especially if you're trying to build yourself out. If you're a young kid trying to get in this, man, understand it is a marathon, just like investing, just like getting your life in order. All of this is a marathon. Not going to happen overnight. Don't get discouraged from where you are. Don't be ashamed to ask for help. I think that's a big one. I have plenty of mentors from, either being Gary, Cream. I have several other that I refer to all the time in the DJ industry. I'm like, I'm about to take this booking, and I've been in with Cream and Gary, and we're like, if you take that booking, we're going to be really concerned for you then. But, don't be afraid to ask for help, man. You don't know all the answers. I promise you that. And you're not going to ever have all the answers. And to understand that and be, vulnerable and open in this industry and just in life, man, you're going to get much farther.
I love it. Great advice.
Perfect. Great.
All right, Dario, I just want to say from our end, you've been doing a great job, and I know listening to Dario, you can tell he's thinking about his business the right way. He's a smart guy. We love you. We love having you on our team, and we're proud of you. And, I say to you when we talk on the phone, but, you're the next wave of
thank you, big
artist, headliner, So keep doing what you're doing, and we're proud of you, and we love you.
I appreciate that, man. And I don't hold that lightly. So to have that cosign, always means the world. And I am a product of when you start up from ground zero and you just stay the course, because like we said in the beginning, I started playing on a damn barrel once a month. And now I'm very fortunate and blessed to where I'm playing some of the largest venues, not just in New Jersey. Now we're branching out a little bit, but that does not happen overnight, man. It's taken me a lot of years, a lot of sleepless nights, all that, But it's been a fantastic ride. So I thank you, Cream and Gary, for trusting me and giving me a shot. It's been a fun ride, and we're gonna keep it going.
I have one final request before we sign off.
Absolutely.
Can I get an yeah?
Yeah.
All right. And with that, thank you guys. Thanks for listening to this episode of The Get Down. Talk to you guys soon.
Peace, guys.
Peace.
See ya.